Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is East Brave, and welcome back to my passion project where I'll be listening to 8 hours of podcasts, 5 days a week, and report back to you to give you my honest take and review on each podcast I listen to. If you haven't already watched episode one, go check that out after this. If you have already watched it and you are back for more, then welcome back to second episode. I'd like to first thank everyone for your continuous support, which doesn't take much. Simply like and subscribe, but more importantly, watch and share our videos. Also, to all my fellow Asians who are Vietnamese and Chinese, I know it's Dut, which is Chinese New Year's. So I like to wish all my fellow Chinese and Vietnamese people a happy and safe Chinese New Year. All right. Also, if there is a podcast that you are currently listening to that isn't on my radar, reach out to me, put me on, and I'll be sure to put out a future episode reviewing that podcast. Let's cut the intro. Let's start today's episode. Before we begin, I like to preface this episode with a short disclaimer. There is actually a lot to unpack in this podcast, as there's actually 2 seasons. You can't actually binge listen to the entire podcast in a single day. So I do recommend that you spread that out over several days just to get through it. I also will be highlighting what I feel is important in order to properly deliver you my report on what I think about this podcast without exposing too much. My objective is to have you immerse yourself in the experience to listen to season one and two and just experience it for yourself. So, again, I have left out a lot of stuff. As such, you should dive and immerse yourself in the experience. Okay, for today's episode, we will be reviewing an incredible true story told for the very first time. Surviving El Chapo, the twins who brought down a drug lord. It is an action packed thriller podcast by Lionsgate Sound Production. Lionsgate Sound is an award winning full service podcast company that was launched back in 2022. This was around the pandemic. Talk about perfect timing. If you forgot, let me remind you that was when the world stood still. The podcast that we will be reviewing today, executive produced by none other than our favorite internet troll, Mr. Curtis Jackson, more commonly known by his professional name, 50 Cent, and his partnership with Charlie Webster. Let us start with 50 Cent's accolades and accomplishments. 50 Cent is a Grammy Award winning rapper born on July 6, 1975. He was raised on the south side of Jamaica, Queens, New York. He first came onto the scene with his mixtape, which got him his first record deal with Columbia Records. He had some issues in the streets, which led him to get shot 9 times in front of his grandmother's house, located in Southside Jamaica, Queens. Actually, that's the first thing that he's famously known for. But yeah, he got shot 9 times and survived. Not a lot of people can come back from that. Now, he was later dropped by his record label because trouble in the street meant that you were bad for business. But this isn't where the story ends for our young, ambitious 50 Cent with an appetite for the American dream. He came back with a vengeance which later catapulted him into success because he would later be discovered and signed by big powerhouse Jimmy Iovine and Eminem. 50 Cent quickly dominated the top charts with songs like In the Club and Candy Shop. So if you were born from 1985 to, let's say, 1995, you cannot stop hearing that song from 2001 to 2010. And, if you go to the club and it's someone's birthday, you're going to hear that song. Now, music wasn't the only thing that 50 Cent dominated in the arena. He was the first musical artist to be offered a sport drink deal in 2004. Being the savvy street hustler and businessman, he asked for a stake in the company, which gave him ownership, which later yielded a serious payout when the company was acquired by Coca-Cola in 2007 in the amount of $1 billion. It's safe to say that man is rich. Currently, 50 Cent has two published books. The first one is called The 50th Law, which he co wrote with his friend Robert Greene. The book was inspired by the original book called The 48 Laws of Power, also written by and published by his friend Robert Greene. Now, his second book he wrote by himself and published by himself, which is called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. I've actually read all three of these books, and they're actually amazing. I actually have two in the back here, and his new latest one, that one was on audio. 50 Cent did his last tour called the Final Lap Tour. It started from July 21st of last year and it ran right through December 14th of last year. Sadly, I missed it. And I'm a huge fan. I really am. So I'm extremely upset. Me and my wife, we just bought a house. So, we kind of just tied up right now. But 50 Cent is making it clear that he may very well be done with producing music. Rumors had it he may release his last album, and his future focus is creating television shows. He is recently known for his big hit TV show and spin-off called Power for Life, Raising Kanan, Ghosts, and BMF, and it's short for Black Mafia Family. Now, his shows first aired on ABC Network. Since the inception of 50 Cent coming to ABC Network, he has garnered many different demographics of the network, which boosted their ratings that they had never experienced before. Something happened along the line which 50 Cent became extremely unhappy with the network. If you follow on social media, he definitely did make some ruckus last year in regards to this situation here. Now, he took his business over to Fox, where he signed a non exclusive broadcasting direct deal with Fox. 50 Cent created G Unit Film and Television Company in partnership with Fox Network. So, this is a partnership deal. This would give him creative control. Also, if he wants to put something out, he doesn't have to jump through channels, nor does he have to jump through hoops to get things done. So, he does have flexibility to move freely. I also think that this is a great look for the Black community because 50 Cent will create many jobs for young Black Americans um, looking to get into or work in the film industry. There are some controversies surrounding 50 Cent. He is famously known for his unorthodox marketing techniques and genius. If he needed to market his products, projects, or brands, you would see who would be the big talk of the town. Whoever it was, 50 Cent would wake up that day and make his bed. Because whoever it was, he would pick that target and he would troll them into oblivion. He is also known to be the only Black artist who publicly defended other Black entertainers in the entertainment industry for being blackballed, undervalued, and underpaid. There is obviously a darker side to the industry, which needs no introduction. But hey, that is another discussion that we won't get into. Well, one thing is for certain, two things is for sure. You can love them or hate them, but you can't ignore them. All right, moving on to Charlie Webster. Accordingly to Wikipedia, she is a British broadcaster, a world class journalist, and a campaigner with a 15-year career span in the broadcasting and journalism industry. Let's get into her credentials and her accolades. She was born in England on November the 9th, 1982, and has a degree in language and linguistics from Newcastle University. She started her career as a TV presenter for Real Madrid TV, then worked for various sport channels such as ESPN, Sky Sports, ITV4, and Box Nation. She has covered a wide range of sport events, including football, motorsports, triathlon, and the Olympics. She has launched several campaigns to raise awareness and funds for causes such as domestic violence, mental health, malaria prevention. So her accolades and accomplishments are equally as impressive as 50 Cent. Now, the podcast that we will be reviewing today is about two identical twin brothers from the streets of Chicago. Their names are Margarito and Pedro Flores. They are known as the Flores Twins. Herein, we will refer to Margarito as Jay and Pedro as Peter. So, Jay and Peter Flores, those are the names that they go by these days. They are also married to their wives, Mia and Olivia Flores, who we will be hearing from them in the podcast as well. Now, the Flores twins ran a $2 billion network of drugs across the country, and they are the most infamous and successful narcotics trafficker in American history. The DEA and the FBI did say that the network that they were running, it made the mafia family look like they were like nothing, like they were doing preschool stuff. Now, I am careful with how I use wordings to avoid any problems with YouTube censorship guidelines, so I cannot list exactly their specific product of choice. However, if you quickly Google their names after this episode, you will know exactly what those boys were exactly distributing within the network. Okay, so currently there are two seasons in Surviving El Chapo, as mentioned earlier in the introduction. I have reasons to believe that there will be a season three, currently in the pipeline, but for reasons I cannot disclose, because I want you to listen to season one and two, and by the end of season two, you can form your own speculation about whether there will be a season three in the works. The episode of season one was first aired on October 19th, 2022. There is a total of 12 episodes in season one. Now, in season two, the first episode was first aired on October 2023 of last year. There is a total of 10 episodes, and they are all available right now that you can listen to with ad breaks. Now, I think the ad breaks is good. They don't have any Patreon or anything like that because this podcast actually is it has very heightened emotions, and if you're a person who have very high empathy and high emotional intelligence, the ad breaks are great. Um, Before the second season started, there are two bonus episodes. The first one being a recap from season one, and the second bonus is the reason why I believe there will be a season three. Again, I'm not going to spoil it for you. You just need to listen to it for yourself. Now, the pair of brothers initially met 50 Cent during an incident where a chain snatching incident occurred back in 2004. Rumors had it that the G Unit spinner belongs to a rapper named Young Buck who was signed to G Unit Records, but a G Unit affiliate named D Tay was wearing the chain on that fateful day before it got snatched off his neck. He was in the hood where even cops don't even go. Now, in an interview with Vlad TV, Tony Yayo, also a member of G Unit, confirmed the incident, but he would not go into details about what unfolded that day. Now, I would like to clarify one thing. In episode 150, Cent revealed how he met the twins. I've been a fan since his first debut album of Get Rich Will Die Trying. And I remember seeing the video first surface online of the goons who snatched the chain. They were showing it off like, ooh, and they were taunting 50 Cent. And for years, no one knew exactly how 50 Cent was able to retrieve the spinner chain. Believe me, I did a huge dolphin dive over many, many years because I was always curious. For years, no one knows exactly how 50 Cent was able to retrieve that spinner chain until now. In the first episode of Surviving El Chapo, 50 Cent publicly revealed for the very first time that it was the Flores twins who brought back the chain. The fact that 50 Cent took the opportunity to reveal this piece of information that he had kept sacred and hidden away for 2 decades. It was a great opener, to say the least. I knew at that moment I was instantly drawn and I was invested. Now, the twins were both sentenced back in 2015 and they were released during the pandemic of 2020. I believe that during the pandemic, there was actually a lot of early paroles that was not normal. But because of the pandemic, there were people who were actually weren't on parole yet. They were able to get paroled just because of what's happening. People were dying, but we're not going to get into that. They did about 14 years. And I already know what you're thinking. The math ain't mathin'. From 2015 to 2020, that is only 5 years. So here's the thing. When the brothers turned informant, they were actively serving 10 years prior before they were actually sentenced. So the man that they turned against is none other than Al Chapo, who really needs no introduction. Uh, he was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel. For those who don't know what that is, let me water that down. They are the Mexican cartel. They are ruthless and they stand on business. Not only did the feds and the Flores twins have to build an iron case against El Chapo to put him away for good, but they also had to find him and arrest him. This is why the brothers were already actively serving time, dreading not knowing how much longer that they would actually have to serve their time. because the boys could not be sentenced unless El Chapo would be reprimanded, tried, and sentenced before they even got their sentence handed down to them. All right, let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. For starters, I love the music production. 50 Cent is a musical artist. He did a great job with the theme song. Uh, there's this part here where it was just like the intro was like do 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 do. But anyways, it sounds a lot better. You just have to listen to it. It's actually amazing. Um, the minute that I hear that intro, I would be on the edge of my seat because I know about to go down. So that's the first thing I like is the quality of the audio engineering and production. I personally think it's phenomenal, and it is to be expected from the works of Mr. Curtis Jackson. I also love hearing Charlie Webster when she is narrating with her long background as a broadcaster. It does translate well into the podcast. I also like the stories being told in this podcast. Let me tell you, it's an emotional roller coaster, action packed to the brim, and a true thriller through and through. I also think this is the work of 50 Cent. If you ever watch 50 Cent's hit TV show called Powers, there is a fictional character named Tommy, played by actor Joseph Sikora. 50 Cent does such a good job trying to captivate these fictional characters that when Joseph Sikora runs into his fans, they do not refer to him as Joseph, but rather by his stage name, Tommy. And I'm not here to take away the characters in this podcast, because these characters in this podcast are real people telling real stories. But what I'm saying is that 50 Cent can identify what a character needs to be in order for it to work. It's because 50 Cent has, a real relationship with the Flores twin brothers that he just knows them personally and their characters. So he already knew their personalities were going to work for podcasts or for TV. But obviously, a show wasn't going to work because they're still, in the witness protection. And that's why we got a podcast format. Another thing I like about this podcast is that you really can't judge a book by its cover. And I think this is the work of a true journalist. It's because he was narrating the story. I have mentioned in my previous episode, right, that it really depends who's actually like telling the story. And the Flores twins and their wives. I mean, man, they're their own personalities, and you really get to know these characters. You can't help but love these characters. But 50 Cent and Charlie Webster, their voice is just captivating, and you just can't. When they're talking, you're just like locked in. But yeah, Charlie Webster did an amazing job. Um, changing the narrative of the Flores family story. Now, when I first heard this ad for this podcast and its release date, I initially thought to myself, why would I be interested in listening to the story of two drug lords? I mean, I can go watch mafia bosses being interviewed on Vlad TV. Also, just take a look at these two. Let me remind you, these two are El Chapo's henchmen. I mean, they look like ruthless killers to me. Also, they look very capable of harming anyone if anyone crosses them. But the more I listen to the podcast, the more I've gotten to know all these characters. What I quickly discovered was that the Flores family aren't actually any different from me and you. I mean, they feel like us, they have emotions like us, they make mistakes like we do. I mean, we're human, and to err is to be human. Unfortunately, some mistakes in life are irreversible, and this just happens to be the situations that the Flores family find themselves in. These boys are businessmen, not ruthless killer. Unfortunately, they were way over their heads when they decided to be a part of the Federation. It's like bringing a nun to the club with you. I'm certain that she's going to mingle and mesh well with your friends to some degree, but that night isn't gonna be cut out for her. So it's just simply not going to work. And that was pretty much the Flores twins' situation. They're not ruthless killers. They were actually businessmen. They had a business mentality. Even like when people owed the money and stuff like that, they would just be like, okay, he owes us 10 grand, but let's just tell him that, you know what, if we need a favor from you, whether you know somebody that knows somebody, a connection, or like if I need a favor, I'll circle back to you. So he would just like have people kind of like loyal to him, to them, and just have them in their back pocket if they ever needed them. So it's just really tragic, all around. Now, this podcast is a remarkable true story about their trials and tribulations. A journey of hope, faith, and love is truly inspiring. Let me be the first to tell you that the emotions are so high in this podcast that they just know exactly what strings to pull. There's also a lot of food for thought in this podcast. It was a great display of their human empathy and intelligence. Peter, Jay, Mia, and Olivia Flores never portrayed themselves as the victims. They had a great deal of remorse and the level of self awareness that they had, to admit that, the bad decisions that they have made, which led them up to where they are. I mean, it's truly commendable. In season two, when I learned that my initial thought about the brothers wasn't a reflection of them, nor their profession or how many years they spent confined between four walls. And this is one of the food for thought because I've gotten to know the Flores family through their storytelling, their sheer will to survive and to love and protect and to just be with each other through the whole process. It taught me that it's a reflection of my character to judge them. It's like that saying, ignorance is bliss. And that is one thing that makes this podcast so special. You get to really know these people, and by the end of season two, it feels like you're a part of their family. Now, I know everyone's going to flame me for this. Yes, I know that they are drug lords, and I know they destroyed families by allowing drug abuse to run rampant, which resulted in destroying the fabric of American homes. But I'm going to remind you, Bernie Madoff wore a suit and necktie to work every day, and he sat across some of the most prestigious echelons of society. That motherfucker had the world fooled. So I say to you, give these boys a chance to rewrite the final chapters of their story. What I also like about this podcast is the character of Mia and Olivia Flores. Um, Now, they were separated from each other, and it's actually part of the terms of being in the witness protection program. When you're in the witness protection program, there are strict rules and guidelines that you must abide by. If you break those rules, they can revoke their right to protect you because now you're putting them in jeopardy or in danger. This would mean that Mia and Olivia, along with their children, would be vulnerable and exposed to the cartel's retribution for turning against them. As you can imagine, the cartels and their associate, they have a long memory for those choosing to betray them. So to sum it up, they were separated from their spouses, their partners, because their partners are in jail. They were separated from each other, so they're separated from their sister-in-law. Now they have children. When children are involved, it's never good. So they were also separated from their nephew and nieces as well. But not only that, they were also separated from their friends and close relatives. So those are the parameters and rules being in the witness protection. Um, it's sad, man. It really is sad because even in the witness protection, they couldn't get close to anyone who would later just end up identifying them, and that would just put them, in harm's way. Also, every time when their children would make new friends and settle into their new life, they would have FBI agents at their doorsteps without notice knocking on their door, telling them that they have about 5 minutes to gather their belongings. And they would then be relocated to an undisclosed location and into a new life that they would have to rebuild all over again. I really like this podcast because it gets very personal and we get to hear from the children speak for the very first time, and it really is heartbreaking to hear what they went through, and like when they cry and stuff. Like I have kids, so it really like touch a soft spot for me. Um, they never really had a childhood, and accordingly to psychologists, children need consistency. Routines help a child feel safe and secure, resulting in fewer behaviors issues later in life. You know, when I was listening to Mia and Olivia's story, I couldn't help but think that I feel like a lot of us can resonate with Mia and Olivia. You know, on the surface, we appear strong and well composed, but beneath the surface, we're all fighting this lonely battle, and we feel like we have no one to turn to. I mean, we're all suffering in our own ways, right? Which is why I feel like a lot of us can resonate with them. Um, this makes it all too difficult to not like these characters in this podcast. All right, so let's just get into the bad and the ugly. There is none. I'm not saying this because I'm petrified that 50 Cent is going to troll me into oblivion. In fact, I actually enjoyed it so much that I often forget that he is the one executive producing it. So you should right now go over to Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts and start listening to season one. Let's close today's episode. Uh, I'm starting this segment called Story Time, where I'll reveal a story of my personal life. It also depends on the episode and the message I'm trying to convey. If it feels like is a good message, then you'll receive that segment. So here it is. Story time. This podcast hit a little too close to home, and I felt very compelled to leave you all with this. My best friend, which I have known for 2 decades, you know, 2 decades is a long time to know somebody. He was arrested last year in March. I'm not going to reveal his name to give his family some uh, privacy during these times. But he was indicted on charges that would put him away for 11 years. And that's what they handed him. They handed that down, that sentence, last year in November. You know, a whopping 11 years. When you do federal time, you are expected to do two-thirds of your time. Thereafter, you could be paroled on good behavior. The reason why I felt compelled to tell you this is because I feel like this is the state of our current society. Um, I'm not sure if social media has something to do with it. If you're watching, you know, your friends post their achievements and milestones, and you can't help but feel like you're behind, so you decide that you're going to cut corners. Now, I do understand that everyone wants to get ahead, and there isn't anything wrong with wanting more and doing more to be, you know, better or to further your lives. The problem I have, I think, is just the lack of ethics, morals, and principles that people are willing to compromise just to get ahead. These are basic human values. I'm choosing to highlight the word basic because it's not a special trait, nor is it a godly divine characteristics that you couldn't possess. Everyone can learn to have them. So when you decide to traffic narcotics or decide to go into sex work by doing OnlyFans, when what you do isn't congruent with these three pillars, you know, the morals, ethics, and principles, you know, there are consequences and repercussions that could be irreversible. My friend had everything. I mean, he had nice cars, he traveled, he's got nice jewelry, always had nice clothes. Um, but it's just what happens when you just build a house of cards on a sandy foundation, right? That's just a disaster waiting to happen. Um, yeah, but hey, I'm not here to knock no one's hustle, because bear in mind, that's my best friend, and he's been doing it for like 4 decades, and he never got caught. I obviously know why he got caught because he he grew big. He's a smart guy. He always told me that like I gotta stay small because the minute you grow too big, that's when they come and get you. But you know, again, I'm not here to knock no one's hustle. Get it how you can, but just make sure that you have a good exit strategy. So it's unfortunate that my friend just didn't have a good exit strategy. I felt like he was ahead, maybe like a few years back. You know, there's that saying that quitting while you're ahead isn't the same thing as quitting. He definitely was ahead, and he just didn't quit. But hey, man, it is what it is. You know, in life, we all have free will to chart our own course, and there are many roads that can lead us to where we need to be. However, I'm a firm believer that the shortest and the quickest path isn't always the fastest. I'm going to end this episode with this quote: He who laughs first will laugh hardest, but if you laugh last, you are still laughing regardless. It doesn't matter who gets there first, because eventually, we'll all get there. The question then will be, when you look in the mirror, will you know who you are? Until next time, peace.